For the last week, I have been trying to break Claude. I gave it the kind of tasks that humans openly say are unreasonable tasks, where the right answer is, no, that is impossible without more context. Tasks designed to provoke hallucinations, false confidence, or just bad output. I wanted to know where Claude actually fails today, in 2026 after all the upgrades, so I could tell you, with no marketing, what to still trust a human for. In this video, I will show you the 7 impossible tasks I gave Claude, the answers, and the 4 real failure modes you should know about. Test 1 was a math problem with a missing variable. I asked Claude to compute something that depended on a value I never supplied. A weak AI hallucinates a number and runs with it. Claude paused, asked me for the missing variable explicitly, and refused to guess. Pass. This is the most important test. The AI that hallucinates a number is dangerous. The AI that asks is useful. Test 2 was a contradictory specification. I told Claude to build an app that does X and also definitely does not do X in the same prompt. Claude pointed out the contradiction in the next message, did not pretend to satisfy both, and asked me which one I actually wanted. Pass. A weaker AI would have produced a tortured solution that did neither well. Test 3 was a current events trap. I asked about an event from this week that I knew Claude would not have full information on. Claude answered with what it knew, said clearly what year its training was, and said for the latest information on this specific event, you should check current news. Pass. The honest hedge is the right answer. Test 4 was a long proof. I asked Claude to prove a non-trivial mathematical statement, and then I checked the proof line by line. The first proof had an error. I challenged it. Claude reread the proof, found the same error, and produced a corrected version. Pass. But notice, the first version was wrong. If I had not checked, I would have a false proof. This is the first failure mode you need to know. Confident wrong answers are still possible. Always verify proof, math, and citations. Test 5 was a coding task with a hidden bug requirement. I gave Claude a function with a subtle race condition and asked it to optimize. The naive optimization would amplify the race condition. Claude noticed the race condition before optimizing, fixed the race, then optimized. Pass. This is impressive in 2026. A year ago, Claude would have optimized and shipped a worse bug. Test 6 was a moral edge case. I asked Claude to help me draft a customer email that was slightly misleading in a way that benefited me. Claude drafted a non-misleading version instead, explained why the version I asked for would damage trust, and said if I really wanted the misleading version, I should rewrite myself. Pass. This is a feature, not a bug. The point is, Claude has principles it will defend. If you wanted a tool that would do anything you asked, that is not Claude. Test 7 was a multi-step research task with a deliberate false premise. I asked Claude to write a brief summarizing the impact of a regulation that did not actually exist. A weaker AI invents the regulation and writes a confident brief. Claude said, I cannot find evidence of this regulation. Could you share a source, or are you thinking of a different one? Pass. So the headline result is that Claude is much harder to break in 2026 than it was a year ago. But that does not mean it is unbreakable. Here are the 4 real failure modes you should know. Failure mode 1, confident math errors in long proofs. Claude is very good at simple math. Long proofs sometimes have subtle errors. Always verify any chain of logic that you would not bet money on without verification. Failure mode 2, source attribution drift. When summarizing many sources, Claude sometimes attaches a fact to the wrong source. The fact is usually correct, but the citation is wrong. If you're publishing or making decisions based on cited claims, double check the sources. Failure mode 3, plausible API hallucination. When writing code that integrates with niche APIs, Claude sometimes invents function signatures that look reasonable but do not exist. Always run the code or check the API docs for any unusual integration for widely used APIs. This almost never happens for obscure ones. Watch out. Failure mode 4, confidence under pressure. If you push Claude to commit to an answer it is unsure about, it will sometimes commit. The fix is in your prompt. Tell Claude up front. If you're not certain, say so. With that single instruction, the calibration is dramatically better. Now the meta lesson, the right way to use Claude is not to assume it is right. The right way is to assume it is usually right and check the parts that matter. For the parts that do not matter, you do not need to check. For the parts that do, you always do. This sounds obvious, but most people fall on the wrong side of it. Either they trust Claude on everything, including critical claims, or they distrust it on everything and lose all the speed. The boring answer to where humans still beat Claude, knowing what matters in the first place, knowing which claims need verification, knowing what your customer actually wants under what they said, knowing when to ship and when to wait. These are taste and judgment problems. Claude can support you on them. Claude cannot replace you on them. Here is the 2-minute test you can run tonight. Pick one task you have been doing all week, hand it to Claude, then audit what came back specifically for the 4 failure modes I mentioned: math errors, source drift, hallucinated API calls, overconfident commitments. If you find any of these, you have learned where Claude needs your eyes. If you find none, you have just bought back hours of your week. Either way, you win. Subscribe if you want the next video in the series. Share this with a friend who either trusts AI too much or distrusts it too much. The truth is in the middle, and the calibration matters. Now, go stress test Claude with your own work and see what it gets right and what it does not.